Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Legends video. My name is D-Free, and here today we're going to talk about the upcoming LF Zenkai Super Saiyan 2 Gohan. I am so pumped for this, man, and hope you guys are as well. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed today's video, hit that subscribe if you are new to the channel for more content. And if you guys enjoyed today's video, help us hit our like goal of 2,000. If you guys enjoyed what you see and you hit that like goal, we will be coming back tomorrow for a part 2 centered around LF Majin Vegeta and talking about how good I think LF Majin Vegeta will wind up being. So if you guys are ready to get the video started, man, I am too. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Okay, so the first couple of things I want to mention when it comes to Gohan is obviously since he's getting a Zenkai Awakening in the next probably about 3 weeks at the time of the recording, his stats when he does get the Zenkai Awakening will be jumping up. Now, I want to say that I have to normalize this to 7 stars because it doesn't appear that they will be changing the star requirement for Legends Limited units at this point. So if we take him and put him at 7 stars overall and level 5,000, this is how the stats are looking. Almost 140,000 in both defensive stats, 200,000 attack and strike attack, 217,000 blast attack, 2 million HP. These are actually pretty good, well-rounded stats. And again, they are going to be jumping up with his Zenkai Awakening, so that's one thing that's really going to be in his corner going forward. The next really big pro for this guy is the fact that he has health restoration. This is huge because it'll help him play longer, and that's big because he wants to be your last guy out there, your last man standing, so to speak, based on the way that he is built, and that's going to be huge for him making it into that late game and for that late game push. Another great thing about Gohan is that he actually does not have access to any negative sub-count effects. What I mean by that is when he has cover change, when he cover changes in fact, when a lot of units cover change into the battle, like this guy says right here, he reduces damage received by 40% until combo ends when changing cover. A lot of times that effect is accompanied with a negative effect, such as +2 or +3 to the sub-count, meaning the character then from the rest of the battle on takes longer to switch into the match. Gohan actually does not have that effect, and that's a huge thing for him. It means that he can cover change in reliably, and that coupled with the decent stats that he has defensively and the bulk with the HP would mean that also with the HP recovery, he can again reliably do that a lot of the time. So let's move on to the next really big pro for Gohan, and he has numerous, right? Like I said, he has a lot of them. But another thing that's really good for him in that he wants to be built a certain way and he wants to play a certain way is the reduced cost of his blast cards, because the way he's built currently, he needs to do pretty much everything is centered around launching blast cards. He gets damage buffs for doing so the reduced cost is really, really huge for him. It allows for him to basically just spam those blast cards, and I'm going to talk about ways that can improve all of this going later. But by far the best thing he does, and he is going to be the first character that is Zenkai Awakenable in the game at the time of the recording that can do this, he goes type neutral. So when you pop the main ability, if you have a defeated battle member for 20 counts, he nullifies unfavorable element factors. And if you're new to the game and don't know what that means, it means blue characters, because he's red, will not have type advantage for 20 counts. They will hit neutrally. That means they'll still do a decent amount of damage, but they will not be able to do the bonus damage that is normally associated with type advantage. And also, from Gohan's perspective, since he also just so happens to draw his father-son coming about the same time, his ultimate will do a lot more damage to said blue units as well if he's in that situation. So again, that's by far the best thing that he's done and that he ever has done, pretty much. It allows for him to be in a lot of different scenarios as your last man standing, and that's going to age forever well in this game. This mechanic has always been super good. But as always with any other unit, it's time to go ahead and just jump into the cons. And don't be fooled. Gohan is not particularly great anymore. He's honestly, I'm just going to be completely honest, he is completely, what's the word, outdated, right? At the time of the recording, Gohan is a character that if he's your last man, right? If he's your last man, he can still put out damage with the best of them, right? But there's a lot of flaws in trying to build your team around a character like that needs to solely and expressly be your last fighter, and he's slow and he's subpar throughout the beginning to middle portions of the match and really doesn't excel until the end of the match. And that is by far his biggest flaw, in my opinion, is that he needs to be a character that's, again, like it says here, per defeated battle member. He gets 60% when 2 guys are defeated. He gets 30% when 1 is defeated and 20% Q recovery. But let's just be completely honest. This is normal stuff. If 1 unit's defeated, he's getting normal buffs that normal units are getting these days. Like, this is not impressive anymore. He needs 2 units to be defeated to really even get an impressive amount of buffs, and it's only damage and Q recovery, nothing else really in there unless you have a defeated Goku, which he will get a bonus in ultimate damage. He's just outdated. And again, in high tier, I need to specify that because every time I say that a unit is outdated, there's always somebody that comes to their defense and is like, no, my Gohan, I used him versus Vegito Blue last week, and he shredded him. Yeah, he can do that, but in high tier PvP, where you're playing against not only whales, but some of the best players in the game, he is not current enough. He's not current enough. He's just not good enough anymore. That's just the way that the game has treated him, and that's unfortunate as a Gohan fanboy to have to say those words, but that's his biggest flaw. But they're not going to get rid of that because that's the way he was designed to be, in keeping true to the theme of the show, right? He was the last guy there that could really beat Cell at that point and things like that. It makes sense the way he's built, but we can't improve on that by making him a good character throughout, again, the beginning and middle portions of the match, because up until the end of the game where you're starting to lose characters, he only gets damage basically from launching other blast cards, which is innately flawed as well. That is another con to Gohan. He only really gets damage from there. I mean, he does have damage in his green card depending on how much HP you have, but that's kind of irrelevant for the most part. It's not the biggest deal. He's just a slow damage unit, and that's just the way he's built. And you don't want to use your ultimate or draw your ultimate until you have a defeated battle member in a lot of cases, because not only do you draw the ult, you also gain health restoration, so you don't want to use that too early. You also gain type advantage versus, well, neutral versus blue units, which is also really good. You want to leverage that to the best of your abilities as well, like I said earlier. Another con for Gohan, the green card, like I said, it does buff him, but it's only blast damage. That is something that can be improved. This is definitely outdated. In most cases, units are either going to get a very powerful single stat, which in this case will be blast damage or strike damage or whatever, or they're just going to get a general damage buff. When they take the word blast off and it just says damage, that's infinitely better than specifying blast, just for the record, so you guys know. In most cases, units are no longer doing this, unless it's going to be like 50% when health is below 50% to blast damage for 20 off. That is something different, right? The green card's not bad, but it just could be better, right? So that's one thing I will say, as he's dependent on it for the most part throughout, again, the early to middle portions of the game. And again, I want to keep on stressing that even though he excels late game as your last guy, you don't want to really get to that point, right? It's more or less, you're not trying to force that in most cases. It's more of a luxury than something you should be going out of your way to get, right? So keep that in mind. Now, moving on to the last real con for this guy is actually... No, that's it. That's pretty much everything. I covered everything. Subpar early damage. He needs to use Blast to get damage buffs, which is good. I mean, he gets damage buffs for using Blast. That's also outdated. There are units that do similar things to that. Also, green cards only affect Blast damage. I mentioned that. And then also the battle members needing to be defeated to really excel. But there are a lot of ways I think they can improve on Gohan, and ways they can enhance his ability and his usability. So let's kind of jump into some of those reasons and ways going forward from here. And again, remember, if you're enjoying the video, hit that thumbs up. Let's move on to the next part. So one of the big things they could do for Gohan that I don't think they'll probably do, but one of the things they could really do for him is extend his type neutral. I mean, it's 20 counts, but if they even extend this to 30 or even 45, that would be monstrous. I mean, his main ability is still really good to this day. It's not a bad overall main ability. He draws an ult, he gains ki, he gets health, he gains type effect, neutral type, excuse me. He doesn't have a bad main ability. This is really good even by today's standards still. So I don't really expect this to change that much. Really, I think that's probably the only thing that would wind up changing is making this 30. They could also add another line in here where it's like, oh, plus 50% damage for your ultimate or whatever, because nowadays units are also getting ultimate damage buffs. While his ultimate does do a plus 25% damage inflicted upon activation, which is cool, that's a blast armor, that's still not modern standards. A lot of times units are getting 50% or so in that area. So he definitely could get something like that as well on the main ability, or also on the effect of the ultimate, but we'll see what happens overall. But I don't think they really need to do much, but if they wanted to do that, that would be huge for him. Now, one thing that, again, will alleviate Gohan's playstyle is allowing for him to be a character, and this is a cool effect that we have in the game already, allowing for him to be a character like the green SS4 Goku. So what the green SS4 Goku does is, when he enters the battlefield, green SS4 Goku actually has the ability to draw a blast card and also restores ki. Now, you do need to have a Saiyan battle member on your team, if I recall correctly, but still, like, that's a really good effect. He restores ki by 50%. That's pretty awesome, bro. Like, if Gohan as he's built, since he wants to use blasts primarily and only really blasts, if Gohan had something like that, that would be huge for him, because you have to remember when they add these Zenkais, not only do they expand on the pre-existing kit, if you get the characters Zenkai 3 and Zenkai 6, you can unlock 2 more unique abilities. And this is ways that they could do this. Like, they could add on these extra unique abilities. But what I want to say is, like, if you take a look at the pre-existing Zenkai characters and the way that they improved the unique abilities that they currently had and then the extensions that they added on, there's not really a ton of changes. A lot of what happens with Zenkai characters overall is the fact that they get those freaking 40% stat buffs, and then also they expand on the stats and stuff like that. Like, a lot of their uniques are kind of just like bleh, whatever, and they're very straightforward in a lot of cases, just general beat sticks like Demon King Piccolo. His uniques are just kind of like whatever, but he does so much damage, it translates to the game differently because of the way he's built, right? So that's one thing to consider when it comes to Gohan overall. Now, if they wanted to give him something like that, that'd be huge for Gohan, allowing key gain. And even if he doesn't get key gain, even if he's just like the purple Vegeta Zenkai where he just draws a blast on entry, that's also still good, especially if you pair him with somebody like Zenkai Kid Goku, who can also be a key battery, right? Another thing Gohan is lacking, he has key recovery in here. I see that, albeit he needs to have defeated battle members, but he has key recovery in different ways, right? He doesn't have draw speed. If they wanted to add draw speed onto the kit for Gohan as well, that would be huge. And then all of a sudden you have Gohan kind of resembling green SSJ GT Goku, and units like that are units that are going to be outputting a lot of blast damage with a lot of draw speed and stuff like that, and just be able to shred with blast cards, right? I think that's how he really wants to play. It's just that he's, again, outdated, and he didn't really have the opportunity to do that. If they give him some combination of key recovery, a little bit more in the earlier portions of the game, even if it's just on entry, like restoring 30 key and drawing a blast on entry, for example, which is nuts, by the way, if you chain him with Zenkai Kid Goku, who offers damage and key on switch. Like, Gohan could be easily really good. He's got so much potential to be a great unit, but if they do something like that, Gohan could be monstrous, right? So keep that in mind. He doesn't really need too much. Just draw speed is going to be crazy. And the thing about allowing him to get draw speed is that it would allow for him to spam blast cards, which would allow for him to stack the blast damage buffs, which means he'd be good early game. That's the whole thing. Again, I can't stress enough that needing your characters to be defeated is not a good effect. That's just not a good effect. He's not the only character that has that effect, obviously. It should be more of a luxury than something that you go out of your way to get. That's one thing that I really want to add on and people are aware of, right? One thing that would be cool for him is if they raise the cover cut percentage. I don't think they really will, but if they raise it to 50%, that'd be monstrous. Now, another thing that's kind of hypothetical is they could add on that EX Dabura effect. EX Dabura has an effect where anytime he's matched with a blue character, he does have the ability to specifically nullify unfavorable elements. Now, Gohan already has nullification of unfavorable, and Dabura is the first character in the game that can do this variation of the nullifying unfavorable effect. Gohan already has that on his main, but if they really want to make him good in a Vegito Blue meta, this would be something that's like a dark horse candidate. Again, I don't think it's going to happen, but it's something that is definitely on the table for Gohan, but I don't think it's happening at all because he already has, you know, nullifying here. He should do enough damage to shred blue units with the way that I've built him as well, with the draw speed and spamming blast card buffs and changing some of the other stuff in here, like the green card doing general damage or a very powerful blast damage buff of maybe 50% when below, and his ultimate doing more damage, obviously. Like, he should shred blue units for the most part as well anyway without needing to go neutral, so keep that in mind. But last couple of things I would add for him is, since he's a last man standing, one thing that really annoys me with these guys that are built like this is most of the time, 99% of the time, they're all like cancelable buffs. And I get why from a balance perspective they want the buffs to be cancelable, because you really could have a situation where you have a character like this Gohan and he is definitively the best unit in the game as the last man, and he would be able to output so much damage, which is why they allow these buffs to be cancelable. But from the player perspective, if you're playing as Gohan, it's actually very bad and very disheartening to say, oh, there's so many units nowadays that can remove my buffs, and you have your buffs removed, and then your character that you went and basically went the whole match with trying to optimize for the late game, he's no longer able to do anything pretty much. And that's one thing that needs to change for these units for the most part. They need to find a way to balance it, right? Last thing that I want to add is immunities to unfavorables or things like that would be nice to him. But last thing really would be this effect here. I can't stress enough the Vegito Blue effect on the game, right? Where's he at? So one thing I would like to see is the effect this guy has. I believe LF Piccolo has it as well, but albeit at a worse clip. It's not as good. One thing this guy does is he hits through blast armor. Now, some people were saying there's a possibility that maybe we get an effect that completely nullifies blast armor. I don't think that's going to happen. But if you allow for a unit to do bonus damage, this guy does 100% blast damage inflicted when enemy is using blast armor. That is insane. Like, if you can give this Gohan that, coupling that with again, nullifying unfavorables in the main, he will be able to shred any blue unit, including Vegito Blue, who has blast armor, blast armor is the biggest issue with blast cards in general in the game. It's too good. Blast armor is too freaking good. It's the ultimate counter to that, right? So that being said, Gohan just becomes an unstoppable force and probably winds up being a Z plus tier unit, in my opinion, with some of the changes. Now, like I said, they're not going to give him everything I listed. He has such an outstanding baseline, though, and that's the cool thing about Zenkai units is when they already have an outstanding baseline, they don't need a ton of work to really get extended and be better. Really, just simple things can make this Gohan easily one of the best characters in the game again. And the cool thing is with Zenkai, he shouldn't age out of being one of the best characters in the game. That's one of the best things about Zenkai instead of balance changes. The way they did balance changes initially, the characters were honestly, if we're keeping it a buck, man, they were already irrelevant a month later. Like, that's just how it is, man. But Zenkai, for the most part, should keep these characters relevant for a very long time. So let me know if you guys want to see that Majin Vegeta video. Again, remember the like goal, I believe it was 2,000. A little bit longer than I wanted this video to be. Thank you so much. Hit that subscribe. I'll see all of you in the next one. Click on one of the videos on the screen as well.